a werewolf shifter romance audiobook written by Catherine Stewart. Prologue. The wind howled, a mournful echo of the storm raging in Elara Blackwood's own heart. Rain lashed the diamond-paned windows of her private study. The glass trembled as if in fear. Inside, the air was thick, so thick, scent of old parchment, dried herbs, and the bitter aroma of dawning, undeniable dread. A single beeswax candle flickered, its small flame casting dancing, distorted shadows across tapestries of Stonehaven's proud lineage. Alphas, Lunas, their strength, now a distant legend. Elara's fingers, usually so deft with healing salves, with embroidery, trembled. She traced the faded script, a prophecy, almost lost to pack lore. When the shadow binds the hearth and the Alpha's heart is stone, only the Sunstone's light may cleanse the blight and bid the silent wolf come home. For months, a subtle wrongness had coiled around Stonehaven, an insidious chill. Nothing to do with the encroaching winter. No, it was in the hushed whispers, dying when she approached. It was in the pack members' eyes, clouded, their wills, not entirely their own. And it was in Ronan, her mate, her alpha, a growing distance, a subtle manipulation of his thoughts she'd initially dismissed. Pack stress, she told herself. But now, she saw the tendrils, a darker influence. Her research, pursued in secret, fueled by a desperate gnawing fear, had led her here, to this prophecy, and to him, Beta Malcolm. A floorboard creaked. Outside her door, Elara's head snapped up. Her own wolf, usually so calm, so steady, now a low, rumbling growl of warning deep beneath her skin. She'd been careless, lost in her horrifying discovery. The scent. It wafted beneath the door, achingly familiar, yet now overlaid with something cloying, cold. Malcolm. The door opened. No knock. He stood framed in the doorway, his usual solicitous smile firmly in place. But his eyes, those warm, kind eyes she'd known for years, held a flat, predatory gleam. It stole the breath from her lungs. "Working late, Luna?" His voice, smooth, like poisoned honey. Elara rose slowly. Her hand instinctively went to the small moonstone amulet at her throat, a charm for clarity, for protection. "Malcolm, what brings you here? At this hour?" His smile widened. It didn't reach those chilling eyes. "Concern, of course. Ronan worries when you isolate yourself so. He values your insights." The way he said it, insights, a subtle mockery. He knew she suspected. "Does he?" Elara kept her voice even, a feat that cost her dearly. "Or is it you who worries, Malcolm, about what insights I might gain?" She gestured to the scattered texts, the prophecy starkly illuminated by the candlelight. His gaze flickered to the parchment. For a nanosecond, the mask slipped, raw ambition, cold calculation, the darkness she had so feared. Then gone, replaced by a look of feigned hurt. "Elara, you wound me. After all these years?" "Spare me," she cut in, her fear transmuting into a desperate, cold fury. "I know what you are, what you're doing to this pack, to Ronan." Malcolm chuckled, a dry, rasping sound. "What I'm doing, Elara, is ensuring Stonehaven has the strength it needs. Ronan, he's grown soft, lost his edge since your pup was born." His eyes flicked towards the nursery wing, a shiver down her spine. A strong pack needs a strong, decisive leader. Unfettered. "And you believe that's you?" Elara's voice dripped with contempt, even as terror clawed at her. She needed to warn Ronan, to protect Caleb. "I do." He took a step into the room. Shadows clung to him. "And you, my dear Luna, are becoming a complication." The air grew heavy, pressing. The scent of ozone and something deeply corrupt filled her senses. His dark magic. Elara recoiled, her wolf screaming. She reached for the small silver letter opener on her desk, a pathetic weapon, her only one. "Stay away from me, Malcolm. Stay away from my family." He laughed again. No humor this time, only chilling intent. "It's too late for warnings, Elara." He moved then, faster than she anticipated. His hand lashed out, not physically, not yet, but a wave of crushing mental force. It slammed into her. She gasped, her vision blurred. Icy tendrils, wrapping around her mind, trying to squeeze, to suffocate her will. She fought, drawing on every ounce of her Luna strength. Her love for Ronan, for Caleb, a shield against the suffocating darkness. She saw a flash of his plan then, in the dark recesses of his mind, Ronan broken by her death. Malleable. Malcolm, a comforting presence, ready to guide him, to guide the pack, to control it all. Caleb, her precious son. A pawn. No. With a desperate cry, she pushed back, channeling all her love, all her will, into a psychic scream, a beacon. Not for Ronan. Malcolm would twist any direct warning. But for something else. For the prophecy. Sunstone's light. Cleanse the blight. She poured her essence into that plea, a desperate seed of hope cast into the storm-tossed future. Malcolm snarled, surprised by her resistance. The mental assault intensified. Her knees buckled. The letter opener. It clattered to the floor. He was on her then, his hands, strong, unforgiving, closing around her throat. As darkness clawed at the edges of her vision, as the last of her breath was stolen, Elara's final silent plea echoed in the chaos of her dying mind. A desperate prayer to the moon goddess, to any benevolent spirit that might hear. Find him, my son, my mate. Send the Sunstone. Save them. The last thing she saw was Malcolm's face, contorted, a triumphant sneer, as he carefully, methodically began to arrange the scene. The storm outside reached its zenith. Then, as if mirroring the life extinguished within, it began to recede, leaving behind a world broken, silent, and shrouded in a devastating, carefully crafted lie. The old grandfather clock in the hall, it ticked too loud, so loud. Each tick, an echo in Ronan's study, a hollow beat, drumming against the thick silence that had swallowed Stonehaven Lodge whole since Elara, since she was gone. Dust motes danced in the thin shafts of sunlight trying desperately to pierce the heavy velvet curtains Ronan never bothered to open anymore. Why bother? The light only showed up the emptiness. He stared at her portrait over the cold fireplace, her smile, once a warm embrace, now a ghostly accusation. He'd failed her, massively. And then, the pack. His pack. He was failing them too. He knew it. Deep down, like a festering wound. Beta Malcolm stepped into the study, his presence quiet, like a shadow. "Alpha," he murmured, his voice a carefully crafted blend of respect and concern. Malcolm always knew the right thing to say, the right tone. It was why he was his beta, why he was his most trusted friend, or was he? A flicker, an alien thought. Ronan pushed it away. Too much thinking. It hurt. Ronan didn't look up, just grunted. He wanted Malcolm to deliver his pack updates and leave. Be gone. Just go. The scent of old books. Elara's dried roses. That's all he wanted. Not problems, not decisions, not life. "Ronan," Malcolm began, his voice softer now, a tone usually reserved for difficult truths. "It's about Caleb." Caleb. Ronan's heart gave a painful thud. His son. His silent, fading son. Another failure, etched onto his soul. "What about him?" he managed, his voice a rusty croak. He hadn't used it much. Lately. Malcolm sighed, a sound heavy with practiced sorrow. "He's worse, Alpha. Dr. Evans was here again this morning. He says Caleb's spirit, it's like a candle sputtering in a gale. He's just slipping away from us." To make things worse, Malcolm added, his voice dropping to a near whisper, the pack healers, they're at a loss. They've tried everything. Every chant. Every poultice. Ronan finally turned, his eyes bloodshot, a wild, haunted look in them. He saw not just concern in Malcolm's eyes, but something else too. A calculating patience. No. He was tired. So very tired. So what then? We just watch him fade? The words, a raw accusation, aimed more at himself than at Malcolm, because he had been watching. Just watching. Not at all, Alpha, Malcolm said smoothly, so smoothly. I've been looking into alternatives. There are specialists, caregivers who work with unique childhood traumas. Some have remarkable success with unresponsive children. He paused, letting the idea settle. I found one. A woman. Highly recommended. Discreet. She could live here. Focus solely on Caleb. More importantly, this would take the burden off Ronan. Wouldn't it? Ronan stared. A stranger. In Elara's house, near his son, the thought of violation. Yet, Caleb. The image of his son's empty eyes. He couldn't bear it. He couldn't bear failing Caleb too. Maybe it was fate. This suggestion. Fine. Ronan bit out, the word tasting like ash. Do it. Handle it. He just wanted the ache in his chest to stop. Just for a moment. As Malcolm nodded, a flicker of something, satisfaction, crossed his face before it was smoothed away. Concern. Loyalty. Of course, Alpha. I'll arrange everything. Ronan turned back to Elara's portrait. The question echoed in the silence. Could anyone truly mend what was so utterly broken? Or was this just another path to more pain? His world tilted on that question. This stranger Malcolm spoke of. She was a tiny, unwelcome pinprick of light in his suffocating darkness, and he already wanted to snuff it out. What followed was the familiar tide. Grief, pulling him under. Once more.
The iron gates of Stonehaven Lodge loomed before her, black, imposing, like the teeth of some great beast. Each gust of wind whispered warnings through the ancient pines that lined the drive. Turn back. Run. But where could she run? Jasper Cade's hunters, relentless. She'd felt their pursuit like a cold breath on her neck for weeks. Her meager savings, gone. This was her last chance. Sanctuary, anonymity, a place to heal the gnawing fear that had become her constant companion. Because of that, she had to be brave. She clutched the worn satchel tighter, her only worldly possessions, and forced her legs to move. The lodge itself, a fortress of stone and dark timber, grand, but heavy, so heavy, weighted down by something more than just its age, sorrow. It clung to the air like morning mist. Moments later, inside, the air was cool, surprisingly still. A stern-faced man, Beta Malcolm, he'd introduced himself, led her through a vast, shadowed hall. His smile, it didn't quite reach his eyes. An open loop? A tiny alarm bell dinged in Anya's mind. Why did he feel like polished ice? But she couldn't afford suspicion. Not now. She needed this. Malcolm gestured towards a figure standing by a massive stone fireplace in an adjoining study, half hidden in the gloom. Alpha Ronan Blackwood, he announced. Anya's breath caught. The Alpha. Even in the shadows, his presence, a physical force, big, powerful, and radiating an aura of such profound, dangerous grief it was like a tangible wall. Her wolf, usually so deeply suppressed it was a mere whisper, stirred. A faint, uneasy tremor. Danger? Or something else entirely?
He'd been watching from the study's archway, wanting to get this over with. Another of Malcolm's well-meaning but ultimately futile attempts to help. Then he saw her, small, slender, her clothes, worn, her face, pale. But there was a resilience in the set of her jaw, a quiet strength in her weary eyes, and her scent. Before she could move further into the room, it hit him. Wildflowers, mountain herbs, and something else. Something indefinable, like sunshine after a long, bitter winter. It was the scent from his study that day, the one that had briefly, impossibly, pierced his apathy. His wolf, a beast long dormant and shackled by grief, lunged against its chains. A silent, savage roar of recognition. He didn't know what scared him more, the intensity of his wolf's reaction, or the unfamiliar flicker of something other than pain in his own chest. This was wrong, a betrayal to Elara. He fought it down, his face hardening, a granite mask.
The Alpha turned fully towards her, and just like that, everything changed. His eyes, not cold as she'd expected, burning, like molten gold, filled with a pain so raw it made her own heart ache in sympathy. But beneath the pain, a flicker. Predatory. Possessive. Her bones remembered him, though they had never met. As the silence stretched, the air thickened. What was this? This sudden, fierce pull? This terrifying sense of inevitability? Deep down, she knew the truth, or a sliver of it. This Alpha, this broken, powerful man, he was more than just a potential employer. He was a storm, and she'd just walked into its heart. Malcolm cleared his throat. Alpha Blackwood, this is Anya Sharma, the caregiver I spoke of. Ronan's gaze swept over her, intense, searching. His voice, when it finally came, was rough, like stones grinding together. Leave us. The beta nodded, a subtle, unreadable expression on his face. And then, he was gone, leaving Anya alone with the grieving Alpha, the air between them crackling, an unspoken, dangerous energy. Her world tilted. What had she gotten herself into? Yet, despite that, a tiny, traitorous part of her felt like she'd finally come home.
The nursery. Ronan hadn't stepped foot in here for months, not since Elara. No, he wouldn't think about that. Not now. Each tiny, perfect detail, the hand-carved rocking horse, the faded mural of playful wolf pups Elara had painted, was a fresh stab of guilt. Still, he found himself lingering in the shadowed doorway, a silent observer. Malcolm had insisted this Anya Sharma was good. Remarkable, even. He'd see about that. He expected nothing, hoped for nothing. Because hope was a cruel, sharp-toothed beast. Inside, the room was hushed. Caleb, his son, his 3-year-old pup, sat on the floor amidst a scattering of untouched wooden blocks. He was a miniature echo of Ronan's own despair, small, silent, his eyes holding an old man's weariness. It was a sight that tore Ronan apart, day by day, piece by piece. Anya Sharma entered the room as softly as a sigh. She didn't rush Caleb, didn't try to force interaction. Instead, she simply sat near him, a comfortable distance away, and began to hum. A low, wordless melody. It was peaceful. Her scent, that damn wildflower and sunshine scent, was fainter here, but it seemed to gently nudge away some of the room's oppressive sadness. Maybe it was fate that brought her here, or maybe it was just his tired mind playing tricks. Ronan watched, his arms crossed, his jaw tight. He told himself this was a waste of time, that Caleb was too far gone, lost in the same shadowed silence that consumed his father. What could this stranger possibly do? That an Alpha, his own father, couldn't. What could she offer? That love itself hadn't been able to provide? Yet, he stayed. Because of that flicker he'd seen in her eyes, that quiet strength. Minutes stretched. Anya didn't move. Her humming, a constant, gentle stream. And then, it happened. Caleb, who hadn't voluntarily moved or made a sound towards another living soul in what felt like an eternity, slowly, so slowly, turned his small head, just an inch, towards her, towards the sound. Ronan's breath hitched. His heart, that cold, dead stone in his chest, gave a painful, stuttering beat. 1, 2. As if pulled by a string, Caleb's tiny hand, previously limp, twitched. No, it couldn't be. He must have imagined it. He'd seen ghosts in this room before, figments of his desperate grief. But then Anya, still humming, reached out one slender hand, not to touch Caleb, but to idly trace patterns in the dust on the floorboards beside him. And Caleb's eyes, for the briefest of moments, they followed her movement. Focused. Before she could move again, the moment was gone. Caleb was still again, a little statue, but the air, it had shifted. Something inside Ronan shifted too. Without thinking, Ronan stepped back, deeper into the shadows of the hallway, his own breath catching in his throat. He didn't know what scared him more, the possibility that this woman could actually reach his son, or the terrifying, unwelcome warmth that had just unfurled in his own frozen soul. This was too much, too fast. He wasn't ready. He'd never be ready. He turned and fled. The sound of Anya's soft humming, and the image of Caleb's tiny, almost imperceptible response, chasing him down the long, silent corridors of Stonehaven. Deep down, he knew the truth. This woman, this Anya, was not just a caregiver. She was a catalyst, and his carefully constructed world of grief, it was about to be shattered. He just didn't know if he'd survive it. That night, a scream. It ripped through the oppressive silence of Stonehaven Lodge. Not a scream of words. No. Worse. A raw, animalistic sound of pure terror. Caleb's terror. Ronan was out of his bed before his feet even hit the cold stone floor. His heart, a frantic drum against his ribs. Elara's loss. A constant, dull ache. This was a fresh, tearing agony. He thundered down the hall, his own wolf, that dormant, grieving beast, surging with a desperate, protective fury he hadn't felt in years. His son. By the time he reached the nursery, 2 pack healers were already there, their faces grim, their usual calm, shattered. Caleb was thrashing in his small bed, his eyes wide, unseeing, locked on some unseen horror, his tiny body arched, and that terrible, wordless keen tore from his throat again and again. It was a sound that clawed at Ronan's very soul. They couldn't reach him. No one could. Just like before. Useless. And then, Anya Sharma was there, as if summoned by the sheer force of Caleb's distress. She moved past the bewildered healers, her worn robe swirling around her ankles, her expression a strange mix of fear and fierce determination, her earlier gentle humming, now a distant memory. She didn't hesitate. Before either healer could speak, her body moved on instinct. She knelt by Caleb's bed. "Shh, little wolf," she murmured, her voice impossibly soft, yet cutting through the child's panicked cries. "Shh. You're safe now. I'm here. I'm here." Ronan watched, frozen in the doorway. He expected Caleb to recoil, to scream louder. Instead, as Anya reached out a hesitant hand, not quite touching him, Caleb's thrashing lessened, his cries hitched. Anya's internal flash. Oh, goddess, the pain in this child. It's a dark, coiling thing, like thorny vines around his spirit. I have to try. Anya began to hum again, that same low, wordless melody from before. But this time, it was different, stronger. A faint, almost invisible shimmer of something seemed to emanate from her, a warmth, pushing back the room's chilling despair. Caleb's cries softened to whimpers, his small body slowly uncurled, his wide, terrified eyes found hers. In that moment, as Anya focused all her gentle will on the tormented child, Ronan felt it, a jolt, like lightning striking the ancient oak in the courtyard. His gaze locked with Anya's across the small room. Her eyes, those weary but steady eyes, widened in shock, mirroring his own. The air crackled, a scent, wildflowers, sunshine, and something ancient, something mate, slammed into him, bypassing all his defenses, shaking him to his core. His wolf threw its head back and howled in triumph inside his mind. Mine, mine. The lights in the nursery flickered violently, once, twice, then steadied. Caleb was quiet now, asleep, nestled against Anya's side where she'd finally, gently rested her hand on his back. Ronan's own breath caught. The space between them burned. What in the blazes was that? That pull? That knowing? It was impossible. It was a betrayal. He stumbled back a step. His voice, when he found it, was a harsh rasp. Get out. Anya looked up, her face pale, her eyes still wide with a confusing mix of emotions, fear, wonder, and something that looked dangerously like understanding. Get out! He roared, the sound more animal than human. She flinched, then quickly, silently, slipped from the room, leaving Ronan alone, with his sleeping son, his raging wolf, and the terrifying, undeniable scent of his fated mate, branded onto his soul. Her world had tilted, his had just imploded. Come morning the sun, that unwelcome intruder streamed into Ronan's study, mocking the storm still raging inside him. Sleep? Impossible. Not after that. The scent of her, the jolt, his wolf's insane, triumphant howl. It was all a trick of grief, stress, anything but that. He wouldn't allow it, he couldn't. Elara was his mate, his only mate. To even consider, no. He paced the length of his study, a caged beast. He needed to get rid of her, this Anya Sharma. She was a complication, a disturbance. Yes, that's what she was. A threat to his carefully constructed grief, to Elara's memory. He had to protect that, didn't he? When Anya brought Caleb to him for his morning check-in, as Malcolm had insisted she do, Ronan was cold, brutally so. Keep your methods to yourself, he'd growled, not meeting her eyes, because when he did, he saw that flicker of something and felt that pull. Just see to the boy, nothing more. Her face, he'd noted with a detached part of his brain, had registered a brief flash of hurt before smoothing into a polite, distant mask. Good. Distance was good. She'd merely nodded. Of course, Alpha. And then, her voice soft but clear. Caleb slept through the night. For the first time in a long time, she said. A direct hit. He grunted an acknowledgement. Turning away, he wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing his turmoil. Later, Malcolm found him brooding. You seem troubled, Alpha, his beta observed, his tone all sympathy. The new caregiver, is she proving problematic? Ronan almost scoffed. Problematic? She was a walking, talking earthquake. But he couldn't tell Malcolm that. Couldn't explain the scent, the pull, the sheer impossibility of it all. So, he said, she's unconventional. Her methods with Caleb. He let the sentence hang. Malcolm nodded sagely. Yes, some of the pack have mentioned she seems a bit fey, almost unnatural, the way Caleb responds to her. There are old tales, you know, about those with peculiar gifts. Not always benevolent. A subtle poison. Dripped into Ronan's already conflicted mind. An open loop. A question planted. What if Anya wasn't a healer, but something far more dangerous? Truth be told, Ronan didn't know what scared him more. Malcolm's insinuation, or the undeniable fact that later that afternoon, as he passed the sun-dappled gardens, he heard it. A sound he hadn't heard in almost a year. Laughter, faint, childlike, Caleb's laughter. He followed the sound, and there they were, Anya and Caleb. She was showing him a ladybug on a rose Elara had planted. And Caleb was smiling. A real, actual smile. As fire bloomed beneath Ronan's skin, his chest ached. This woman. What was she doing to his son? To him? The core question again, clawing at him. Was this healing light? Or a deceptive flame luring them all to ruin? He had to make a decision about her. Soon. What followed was a week of torment. For Ronan, anyway. Anya Sharma moved through Stonehaven Lodge like a quiet, sun-dappled ghost. Always there, yet never obtrusive. Always focused on Caleb. And Caleb. Goddess, Caleb was changing. Not just the smiles, the occasional laughter. He was present. His eyes were clearer. He'd started speaking again. Short, hesitant words at first, then blossoming into shy sentences, mostly to Anya. The transformation, it was nothing short of miraculous, and it was tearing Ronan apart. Because every step Caleb took towards the light was a step further away from the shared darkness where Ronan had been dwelling with Elara's memory. Meanwhile, the pack, his pack, it was floundering. He knew it. A border dispute with the Red Fang pack to the north had flared up. Old grievances, easily settled by a strong alpha. But he'd let it simmer. Avoided it. He'd sent Malcolm. But Malcolm, for all his smooth words, lacked the true alpha presence needed to command respect from rivals. To make things worse, vital trade negotiations for winter supplies were stalling. His leadership, it was a joke. He was failing Elara, failing Caleb, failing his pack, the weight of it, crushing. One afternoon, frustrated and self-loathing after another pointless dead-end meeting Malcolm had handled in his name, Ronan found himself outside the nursery again. He didn't mean to go there. His feet just led him. Inside, Anya was reading to Caleb from a worn book of children's tales. Caleb was leaning against her, his small hand resting trustingly on her arm, his gaze fixed on the colorful pictures, a soft smile on his face. The scene was so peaceful, so right. A stark, painful contrast to the chaos and indecision consuming Ronan and, as a result, his pack. Deep down, he knew the truth. He couldn't keep living like this. He couldn't keep hiding in his grief while his son and his pack suffered. This woman, Anya, she was doing what he couldn't. She was healing his son. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first step to healing Stonehaven. He took a breath, a deep one, and then he stepped into the nursery. Anya looked up, her eyes widening slightly in surprise. Caleb, too, turned, his smile faltering a little at the sight of his usually absent father. Ronan's throat was tight. His voice, when it came, was still rough, but some of the harshness gone. Miss Sharma. He paused. This was harder than facing down a rival alpha. Your work with Caleb, it's effective. There. He'd said it. An admission, a crack in his armor. Anya's expression softened. A tiny, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. She felt it, clear as day, this shift in him. Of course, Alpha, she said, her voice quiet. I'd be happy to. As if fate demanded it in that moment, he wasn't just talking to a caregiver. He was talking to the woman whose scent drove his wolf insane. The woman who had inexplicably sparked something within his dead heart. The woman who was, quite possibly, his fated mate. And that terrifying thought, it was now a permanent resident in his mind. He was locked into this new reality, whether he liked it or not. His world had not just tilted, it had been irrevocably altered, and the path ahead, shrouded in a frightening, yet undeniably compelling mist. What followed was an uneasy truce, a battlefield. Drawn in the quiet halls of Stonehaven, Ronan found himself a reluctant general, his enemy not a rival pack, but the unsettling peace Anya Sharma was slowly, painstakingly, weaving into the tattered edges of his life. And then, there was her scent. Goddess, her scent. Wildflowers and sunshine, yes. But now, an undercurrent of something else. Something uniquely her. It clung to the air in Caleb's nursery. A ghost in his own study when she'd been nearby. A constant, infuriating reminder of that night, of that jolt, that impossible spark. His wolf, that traitorous beast, paced relentlessly under his skin whenever she was close. A low thrum of possessiveness he fought with every fiber of his being. It was a torment, this constant awareness. He told himself it was just proximity, just a natural alpha reaction to a new female in his territory. Lies. He started watching her more closely, not just with Caleb, where her gentle patience was a quiet miracle, coaxing smiles and even short sentences from his once silent son. But he watched her, the way she moved, a graceful economy that spoke of someone used to being unnoticed. The way her eyes, often shadowed with a weariness that tugged at something long dead inside him, would light with genuine warmth when Caleb achieved some small milestone. She was an enigma, a dangerous one perhaps. Malcolm's subtle warnings about her unnatural influence still echoed in his mind, a counterpoint to his wolf's insistent purr. He needed answers. Because of that, he found himself lingering near the nursery more often than he'd admit, drawn by a force he refused to name.
Meanwhile, Anya felt Ronan's gaze on her like a physical touch, sometimes cold and assessing, sometimes something else. Something that made her own wolf stir with a confusing mix of fear and an almost forgotten longing. She tried to ignore it, to focus solely on Caleb. The little boy was her anchor in this strange, grief-stricken household. He was thriving under her care, his laughter becoming a more frequent sound, a bright melody against the lodge's somber tune. That's why she stayed, despite the Alpha's unsettling scrutiny, despite the heavy weight of secrets she carried. In the quiet moments when Caleb napped, Anya found herself drawn to the small, leather-bound journal Elara had apparently kept hidden, the one with the pressed moonflower and the reference to the Sunstone healer. She'd found it tucked beneath a loose floorboard in Elara's abandoned private sitting room, as if fate demanded she uncover it. The script was elegant but hurried in places, filled with observations about pack dynamics, worries about a shadow falling over Ronan's judgment, and increasingly frantic notes about ancient prophecies. The blight spreads from within. One entry read, the ink slightly smeared. Only the Sunstone can reveal the true face of the deceiver. A chill traced Anya's spine. What blight? What deceiver? And Sunstone. It felt so familiar, like a half-remembered dream from her own fractured past, a past Jasper Cade was so desperate to reclaim. Her instincts surged. This journal. It was more than just Luna's private thoughts. It felt like a desperate message, a warning, an open loop. What exact blight did Elara mean? And how could Anya, a hunted runaway, be this prophesied Sunstone?
That evening, Malcolm found Ronan staring into the fire, the flames, doing little to warm the ice in his soul. "She still troubles you, Alpha?" Malcolm asked, his voice a soft probe. Ronan grunted. "She's quiet." Caleb responds to her. That much was undeniable. Indeed, Malcolm agreed a little too readily. Almost unnervingly so. Some of the pack, particularly Serena Vane and her circle, they whisper things, you know, about old magic, about influences that aren't entirely of our world. He let the insinuation hang in the air, a poisonous vapor. They say a true Luna's spirit would never allow such an outsider to take her place in the Alpha's heart, or his son's. Ronan's head snapped up, his eyes blazing gold for a perilous second. Anya Sharma is Caleb's caregiver, nothing more. He growled, the denial tasting like ash in his mouth, because his wolf screamed, "Liar! Mate!" Malcolm merely inclined his head. "Of course, Alpha. Forgive my impertinence." But his eyes, they held that familiar, knowing gleam. Ronan knew Malcolm was playing a game, subtly trying to turn him against Anya. But why? Was it just pack politics? A beta's concern for traditional ways? Or something darker, Elara's words from the journal Anya had hesitantly shown him a fragment of "a trusted shadow" echoed in his mind, a deeply unsettling counterpoint to Malcolm's smooth reassurances. The tension, it was coiling tighter, and he felt caught in its suffocating grip, unsure which way to turn, who to trust. His world had become a labyrinth of shadows and whispers, and Anya Sharma, with her quiet strength and unsettling scent, was right at its heart. Days bled into a fragile routine. Mornings were for pack business or Ronan's attempts to re-engage with it, fighting through the thick fog of his grief, a fog Malcolm seemed determined to maintain with his constant, subtle undermining of Ronan's confidence. Afternoons. Afternoons were when the lodge felt most alive, because that was when Caleb's laughter, coaxed out by Anya, would sometimes drift down the hallways, and Ronan, like a moth to a forbidden flame, would find himself drawn to the sound, his heart a confusing mix of joy for his son, and a sharp, painful yearning for something he wouldn't name. It happened in the main hall. Anya was returning from a walk in the gardens with Caleb, the boy's cheeks flushed with rare color, a fistful of wildflowers clutched in his hand. Ronan was coming from his study, lost in thought about a disturbing discrepancy in the pack ledgers Malcolm had overseen. They both reached the heavy oak archway at the same time. Before either could speak, their arms brushed, a jolt, pure, unadulterated lightning. It shot up Ronan's arm, straight to his core, igniting every nerve, every dormant cell. His wolf roared, a possessive primal claim that echoed in his skull. He saw Anya flinch, her eyes widening, her breath catching, the scent of her, wildflowers, sunshine, and that unique, soul-deep mate scent enveloped him, intoxicating, maddening. Her skin where they'd touched burned as if seared. Her heart skipped. His did too. For a breathless moment, time stood still. The air thickened between them, charged with an energy so potent it was almost visible. Just like that, the carefully constructed walls around his heart, they cracked. Then, just as quickly, she pulled away, her face pale, a flush rising on her neck. "Alpha," she murmured, her voice trembling slightly, dipping her head before hurrying Caleb past him. Ronan stood frozen, his arm tingling, his mind reeling. What in the goddess's name was that? It was more than just the bond. It was raw, overwhelming, and terrifyingly, wonderfully, undeniably real. His bones remembered her. His soul answered her. That touch. Oh, goddess, that touch. Anya's hand still tingled where it had brushed against the Alpha's arm, against the hard muscle beneath his linen shirt. Fire had bloomed beneath her skin, a shocking, illicit heat that had nothing to do with the afternoon sun. His scent, it was still in the air, wrapping around her, making her wolf press forward with an intensity that stole her breath. She hurried Caleb towards the nursery, her thoughts spinning. How could a simple, accidental touch feel like a brand, like a homecoming? It was madness. He was an alpha, grieving, and she was a hunted nobody, clinging to a precarious sanctuary. There could be nothing between them, nothing. Yet, her soul sang a different, dangerous song. Later, as Caleb napped, Anya pulled out Elara's journal again. Her fingers trembled as she turned the fragile pages. One entry, dated only weeks before Elara's death, screamed out at her. "The shadow is closer than I feared. It wears a trusted face, speaks with a familiar voice. It whispers poison in Ronan's ear, clouding his judgment, isolating him. He doesn't see the darkness coiling around his own heart, around our son. Prophecy speaks of a Sunstone healer. Is it just an old wife's tale? Or is there truly someone who can pierce this deceit before Stonehaven is lost? Before he is lost? I must find out, for Caleb, for Ronan, before it's too late." Anya's chest ached. Elara had known. She'd known she was in danger. She'd known the pack was being corrupted from within. and Sunstone healer. It was the term her own grandmother, the last of her known bloodline, had used to describe their rare gift. Ours is the light that reveals what shadows hide, Anya mine, she'd whispered. Could it be? Was this why Jasper Cade hunted her so relentlessly? Was this why she felt this strange pull to Stonehaven, to this broken Alpha and his silent son? Maybe it was fate. What followed was a new, chilling thought. If Elara suspected someone trusted, and Malcolm was the Alpha's most trusted. The tension broke when a sharp voice cut through her thoughts. Still hiding away with your books, little mouse? Anya jumped, whirling around. Serena Vane stood in the doorway of the small sitting room Anya used, her arms crossed, a sneer on her perfectly sculpted lips. Serena, always so put together, her dark hair gleaming, her eyes like chips of obsidian. She was beautiful, ambitious, and clearly considered Anya an unwelcome intruder. Some of us have actual pack duties to attend to, not just playing nanny. Before Anya could form a response, Ronan's voice, low and laced with a dangerous edge, rumbled from the hallway. Serena, is there a problem? Serena started, her sneer faltering as Ronan stepped into view, his golden eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made even Anya shiver. Alpha, you were just leaving. Ronan finished for her, his tone leaving no room for argument. Under the weight of his stare, Serena flushed, then nodded curtly and swept past him. Ronan's gaze shifted to Anya. That same unnerving intensity was there, but now it was different, softer, protective. Her breath caught. Are you all right? He asked, his voice still gruff, but the anger gone. Yes, Alpha. Thank you, she whispered, her heart thudding. He merely nodded, his eyes lingering on hers for a moment too long. A silent, charged current passing between them. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Anya with a racing pulse and the distinct unsettling feeling that the ground beneath her feet was shifting in ways she couldn't comprehend. Something inside her had definitely shifted, and just like that, everything changed. The pack council chamber. It felt colder than usual, despite the large fire crackling in the hearth. Or maybe, Ronan thought, the chill emanated from him, from the unease that had been his constant companion since Anya Sharma's arrival, since Elara's warnings had begun to take root in his mind. He sat at the head of the long, polished oak table, his Alpha presence deliberately amplified, a silent warning to any who might challenge him. His gaze swept over the assembled elders, the senior pack members, and his beta, Malcolm, who sat to his right, exuding his usual calm competence, a competence Ronan was beginning to see as a carefully constructed mask. Because of that, every word Malcolm spoke now carried a double meaning for Ronan. The initial pack business, patrol reports, resource allocations, minor disputes, passed in a blur. Ronan found his attention drifting, his thoughts snagged on Anya, on Caleb's continued miraculous progress, on the undeniable pull of the bond he still fought to deny. He thought of the way Serena had looked at Anya, the venom in her eyes. It was a look he'd seen before, in pack politics, usually preceding a challenge or a betrayal. What was Malcolm playing at, using Serena like that? Was he testing Ronan's reaction to Anya being threatened? Then, as if summoned by his thoughts, Malcolm cleared his throat. Alpha, if I may, he began, his tone deferential but firm. There is a matter of internal harmony the council feels needs addressing. Ronan's eyes narrowed. Proceed, Malcolm. It concerns the new caregiver, Miss Sharma. Malcolm paused, his gaze sweeping the council members, many of whom shifted uncomfortably, while her efforts with young Caleb are noted, a subtle dismissal that pricked Ronan's anger. There are concerns, whispers, her origins, unknown, her methods, unconventional. Some fear she brings an unsettling influence, perhaps even unwittingly fulfilling those old, darker prophecies about disruptive second bonds. He let the last words hang, a clear if veiled reference to Ronan and Anya, an open loop for the pack to worry over. Murmurs rippled around the table. Serena Vane looked particularly smug. Ronan felt a cold fury begin to build. This was Malcolm's doing. He was using the pack's superstitions, their fears, to isolate Anya, to isolate him. "Are you suggesting, Beta," Ronan said, his voice dangerously soft, each word a chip of ice, "that Miss Sharma is a threat to this pack?" His wolf pressed forward, a growl rising in his throat. Malcolm met his gaze, his own expression one of perfect, concerned sincerity. "Not a threat, Alpha, never that, but perhaps a vulnerability, an unknown quantity in a time when Stonehaven needs stability above all. Her presence, it creates division, as you can see." He gestured subtly to the uneasy council. "Perhaps it would be prudent to consider alternatives for Caleb's care, someone known to us. For the pack's peace of mind, of course." The audacity. Ronan was about to unleash his full alpha fury when he remembered Anya's words. Elara's journal. "The shadow is closer than I feared. It wears a trusted face, whispers poison." Before he could speak, before he could damn himself by revealing too much, Elder Maeve, one of Elara's staunchest confidants, spoke up, her voice frail but firm. "Beta Malcolm, are you questioning the Alpha's judgment in who cares for his own son? Or perhaps, are you suggesting the Alpha himself is a source of instability?" The chamber fell silent. Malcolm's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Never, Elder. I speak only out of loyalty to my Alpha and my pack." But his eyes, when they met Ronan's, held a challenge. A warning. Ronan knew with a chilling certainty that Malcolm was deliberately trying to corner him. To force his hand, he had to tread carefully. "Your concerns are noted, Malcolm, and yours, council members." His voice was measured, betraying none of the storm raging within. "I will consider them." A dismissal. Later that night, the weight of the council meeting still heavy on him, Ronan found Anya in Elara's small private garden, a place few even knew existed. She was tending the moonflowers, their silvery blooms almost luminous in the encroaching dusk. The wind shifted, carrying her scent to him, wildflowers, sunshine, and that undeniable mate call. "He's trying to turn them against you," Ronan said without preamble, stepping out of the shadows. Anya didn't startle. She simply straightened, a smudge of dirt on her cheek. "I know." Her voice was quiet, resigned. Serena Vane made her feelings quite clear. "It's more than Serena," Ronan said, his chest aching. "It's Malcolm. He's manipulating them." Anya nodded slowly. Then she held out a small, intricately carved wooden wolf, Elara's. "I found this tucked inside her journal." There was a loose sliver of parchment inside its base. Her hand trembled as she gave it to him. Ronan unrolled it. The script was Elara's, tiny, cramped. "The trusted shadow covets the Alpha's seat. He works through whispers and doubts. He will turn brother against brother, friend against friend. He seeks to isolate the heart of Stonehaven. Do not trust the smiling face, my love. The deepest betrayals come from those we hold closest. He fears only the true light, the bond of a true mate." Ronan's blood ran cold. It was a direct warning, a loving, desperate plea from beyond the grave, and it pointed unequivocally at one man. Malcolm, his beta, his friend, his brother in all but blood. How could he have been so blind? As the truth unraveled between them, something cracked deep inside Ronan, his denial, his resistance, his carefully constructed walls of grief. He looked at Anya, truly looked at her, the moonlight painting her in silver, her quiet strength, her unwavering compassion, the light that seemed to emanate from her very being. And in the echo of Elara's voice, in the stark clarity of her warning, he knew what he had to do. "Malcolm is the shadow Elara spoke of," he said, his voice raw with a dawning, horrifying certainty. "He killed her, didn't he?" The question hung in the air, heavy, damning. And though Anya couldn't answer it for sure, the pained empathy in her eyes was answer enough. The whispers had become roars, and the battle for Stonehaven's soul, it had truly begun. He just didn't realize how far the betrayal truly ran, or what it would cost to bring the truth to light. The revelation in Elara's garden, Malcolm as the trusted shadow, the potential murderer of his first mate, it had shaken Ronan to his very core. What followed was a period of taut, nerve-shredding observation. He couldn't openly accuse his beta, not yet, not without concrete proof. Because if he was wrong, the thought, unbearable. So, Ronan watched. He listened. He noticed the way Malcolm's gaze would linger a moment too long on certain pack members, the ones who now seemed flatter, less themselves. He saw the subtle shifts in pack finances, the resources diverted for reasons Malcolm explained with his usual infuriatingly smooth logic. Each explanation, once accepted without question, now felt like a silken lie. And then there was Anya. She became his unwilling, unspoken confidant. In furtive moments, when Caleb napped or late at night when the lodge was quiet, they'd huddle over Elara's journal, piecing together the fragmented warnings. Her presence, once a torment, now offered a strange sort of solace. Her scent, that wildflower sunshine, it still made his wolf purr with a possessive pleasure he fought. But it also somehow cleared his head. Her insights into Elara's cryptic notes, uncanny. More importantly, her Sunstone power, a secret she'd hesitantly revealed more about after the garden, seemed to allow her to sense discrepancies. "This room feels wrong, Alpha," she'd whisper, near a storeroom Malcolm frequently used, like cold, sticky cobwebs. Which meant Ronan had to investigate it later, his gut churning. Maybe it was fate, this fragile alliance. He found himself seeking her out, ostensibly to discuss Caleb, but really, just to be near that quiet strength, that light. One afternoon, as Anya walked near the old stables, a place Elara had loved, a loose roof beam, rotted through from a winter storm Malcolm had supposedly seen to, crashed down, inches from where she'd stood moments before. Ronan, watching from his study window, a habit now, watching her, felt his heart stop, then pure, unadulterated alpha rage, a red haze. He was down there in a flash, his own body shielding hers before he even registered moving. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his voice a harsh growl, his hands gripping her shoulders, checking her for injuries, the scent of her fear, and something else, something uniquely Anya, flooding his senses. Anya shook her head, pale but composed. "No, Alpha. I'm all right." But her eyes questioned him. Was this an accident? Or a warning? He didn't know what scared him more, the near miss, or the terrifying, possessive urge to keep her locked away. Safe. Deep down, he knew the truth. This wasn't an accident. Malcolm was testing him, pushing, and Ronan was dangerously close to pushing back. Hard. His world tilted again. The stakes were no longer just about truth, but about Anya's very survival. The accident at the stables, it wasn't an accident. Ronan knew it, his wolf knew it. It was a message from Malcolm. Stay down, don't dig, she's vulnerable. And it ignited a cold, protective fury in Ronan that burned away the last vestiges of his apathy. Still, he had to be careful, for Anya's sake, for Caleb's. But Malcolm, it seemed, had no such inclination for subtlety anymore. What followed was a direct escalation. He called an emergency council meeting. This time, his accusations against Anya were more overt. "Alpha," Malcolm began, his voice resonating with false sincerity. This woman, this Anya Sharma, she is a danger. The beam at the stables, a clear omen. The ancient laws are clear about mates whose bonds bring forth ill luck and division. For the good of the pack, for her own safety even, she must be sent away before something worse happens. He looked directly at Ronan, a challenge in his eyes. Your move, Alpha. Ronan's jaw tightened. He felt the eyes of the council on him, felt their fear, their uncertainty, all expertly stoked by Malcolm. He was about to speak, to defend her, when a small voice piped up from the doorway. No, Anya, good. Caleb, standing there, clutching a small wooden wolf Elara had carved for him, his usually shy eyes blazing with a child's fierce loyalty. He hardly ever spoke in front of so many people, never this boldly. Malcolm looked momentarily startled, then his smile turned pitying. Ah, the poor pup, clearly overly attached, influenced. But Caleb wasn't done. He pointed a small, trembling finger directly at Malcolm. Uncle Malm, make Mama cry, loud noises, Mama, go sleep, not wake up. The council chamber went deathly silent. Every eye swung from Caleb to Malcolm to Ronan. A child's words, a fragmented memory. But for Ronan, hearing it from Caleb's own lips, it was the final devastating confirmation. Elara hadn't just been worried, she'd been threatened. By Malcolm, his beta, his brother, the man who now wanted to send his mate away. No, never. In that moment, as if pulled by a string, all of Ronan's internal conflict, his grief, his fear, his denial, it all coalesced into a single undeniable truth. Anya Sharma was his fated mate, his second chance, the light to his darkness. And he would not lose her. He would not fail again. He rose to his full alpha height, his golden eyes blazing, not with the wild grief of before, but with a cold, absolute certainty, a primal possessiveness. Anya Sharma stays, he declared, his voice a low, rumbling growl that promised retribution. She is under my personal protection, and anyone who threatens her or my son will answer directly to me. The mine was unspoken, but it thundered in the air, in his scent, in the raw power radiating from him. Malcolm's face was a mask, but Ronan saw the flicker of fury in his eyes. The game had just changed. Irrevocably, Ronan had finally fully accepted his mate. And with that acceptance came a vow, a silent, soul-deep promise to protect her, to cherish her, and to bring Elara's killer to justice. The cost no longer mattered. Something inside him shifted, and just like that, everything was terrifyingly, exhilaratingly clear. He had chosen his path. There was no turning back. What followed Ronan's declaration at the council meeting was a shift in Stonehaven's very atmosphere. The air, once thick with unspoken grief and suspicion, now crackled with a different kind of tension, the sharp, metallic tang of impending conflict. He made no secret of his favor towards Anya. He was seen with her more often, not just in the nursery with Caleb, but walking the grounds, discussing pack matters, ostensibly. Truth be told, he just wanted her near, her presence, her scent, the steady light in her eyes. It grounded him, fueled the cold rage that was now his constant companion against Malcolm. Because of that, many pack members, the ones not already swayed by Malcolm's insidious whispers or their own fear of change, began to look at Anya with new respect. She was the Alpha's chosen. That meant something. Even so, others, like Serena Vane and her clique, grew bolder in their glares, their muttered comments just loud enough to be overheard. They were Malcolm's pawns, Ronan knew, but their animosity was a constant, irritating friction. He also knew Malcolm wouldn't take this lying down. His beta was too cunning, too entrenched. The false concern, gone from Malcolm's eyes, replaced by a cool, watchful calculation. He was regrouping, planning. Ronan could feel it. The core emotional question of whether love could conquer this darkness. It was no longer a question for him. It was a certainty he would make true. One evening, Elder Maeve approached him, her ancient eyes surprisingly sharp. Elara always said you had a good heart, Ronan, even when it was buried under pride or pain. She placed a frail hand on his arm. She also said Malcolm's ambition was a hungry wolf, and one day it would demand to be fed. Many of us, we see the truth now. We stand with our Alpha, with Elara's memory, and with the light this new woman brings. Her words, a balm, a small contingent of loyalists making themselves known. It wasn't much, but it was a start. It meant he wasn't entirely alone in this fight. At the same time, Anya felt the shift too. Ronan's declaration, his unwavering public support, it was a shield, but it was also a spotlight, and it made her deeply uneasy. She was grateful for his protection, for the way his golden eyes now followed her with an intensity that was less about suspicion and more about something that made her breath catch, something that made her wolf sing. But the glares from Serena and others, sharper now, and Malcolm's smiles were colder, his gaze lingering on her with an assessment that made her skin crawl. Her Sunstone power, now more active and sensitive since Ronan had consciously accepted their bond, vibrated with a constant low hum of warning whenever Malcolm was near. She felt his dark intent coiling, gathering strength, like a storm about to break. She knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that he was planning something far more drastic than whispers and political maneuvering. He was being pushed into a corner, and a cornered wolf was the most dangerous kind. One night, as a harsh wind howled outside, reminiscent of the night of Elara's death, Anya was in her small room studying Elara's journal. A new, almost invisible script had appeared on a previously blank page, as if her own growing connection to Ronan, to the pack, to her Sunstone lineage, was acting as a key. The words were faint, chilling. The shadow bargains with the outer dark. A hungry wolf from afar. He seeks a specific light to consume or control. Her heart pounded. Outer dark? Jasper Cade? Could Malcolm truly be desperate enough, evil enough, to ally himself with someone like Jasper? The very monster she had fled? The stakes had just skyrocketed. She had to warn Ronan, immediately. This wasn't just about Stonehaven anymore. It was about a darkness that threatened to spread far beyond its borders. The wind carried his name, Ronan, on its mournful cry, and she knew their tentative peace was about to shatter.
Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Jasper Cade, Elara's warning in the journal, the shadow bargains with the outer dark, a hungry wolf from afar. It could only mean one thing. Malcolm, he was truly desperate. Evil. She had to tell Ronan. Now. She found him in his study, not brooding for once, but staring at a map of Stonehaven territory, his jaw tight, his golden eyes narrowed in thought. The moment their eyes locked, he knew something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Anya, what is it? His voice, low, urgent. Her voice trembled as she relayed Elara's final chilling message. Malcolm, I think he's in league with Jasper Cade. Or he's planning to be. Ronan's face went pale beneath his rugged tan. Then a muscle feathered in his jaw. Pure, unadulterated alpha fury hardened his features. That son of a bitch, he snarled. No, growled. He would sell out his own pack, Elara's memory, for power. Not only that, but he'd endanger everyone. Elder Maeve, summoned by Ronan's urgent mind link, a skill alphas use to communicate instantly with trusted pack members, listened gravely. If Malcolm allies with Cade, she began, her voice frail but her eyes sharp. Stonehaven won't stand a chance. Cade's pack is ruthless, and Malcolm's dark influence from within, it would be a slaughter. More importantly, she added, we must act, now, before that alliance is solidified. And then, a desperate plan formed, risky, maybe foolish, but it was all they had. They would try to access Malcolm's private ledgers, his hidden communications, Elara's journal hinted he kept meticulous, coded records of his dealings, his arrogance, his undoing. Anya's Sunstone power, they hoped, could bypass any dark magical wards he'd placed, could reveal the truth hidden in his scrawled deceptions. It was a long shot. It was their only shot.
That night, as the moon cast long, skeletal shadows across Stonehaven, Ronan found Anya in Elara's quiet garden. She was to attempt to breach Malcolm's study while Ronan and Maeve's few loyalists created a diversion at the pack's northern border, a feigned skirmish to draw Malcolm's attention. He stepped close to her. The scent of her, wildflowers and that incredible, soul-deep sunshine, was a balm to his frayed nerves. Yet it also ignited a fierce, protective fire. He reached out, his hand gently cupping her cheek, her skin so soft. Her eyes, wide and luminous in the moonlight, held fear, yes, but also a fierce, unwavering resolve that mirrored his own. Anya. His voice, a rough whisper. This is dangerous. More dangerous than anything you've faced. Deep down, he knew the truth. He was terrified of losing her. He'd already failed one mate. The thought of failing another, his fated mate, was an agony beyond imagining. If anything happens to you, she placed her fingers on his lips. Shh, she murmured. We do this together, Ronan. For Elara, for Caleb, for Stonehaven. Her touch, it sent shivers down his spine, a jolt of pure, possessive need. Then she leaned in, her breath warm against his skin, and whispered words that shattered the last of his defenses. And for us. Before he could move, before he could think, his mouth was on hers. A kiss. Not gentle, not tentative, but desperate, hungry. A sealing of their silent vow. A promise of everything that lay between them. Everything they were fighting for. The taste of her was intoxicating. Sunshine and hope and a strength that called to his very soul. His wolf howled in triumph. Mine, finally, mine. When they broke apart, breathless, the air crackled with unspoken promises. The space between them burned. With his scent in the air, she whispered, Be careful. My Alpha. Always. My Luna. He replied, his voice thick with emotion. With a single glance, a universe of understanding passed between them. As if pulled by a string, they turned to their separate perilous tasks. The die was cast. And as Ronan moved towards the darkness, he knew, no matter what happened, his heart, his soul, was now irrevocably tied to the woman who carried the light. He just prayed it would be enough. The diversion at the northern border, it had worked. Too well. Ronan and his handful of loyal warriors, including a grimly determined elder Maeve who insisted on being part of the action, had engaged what they thought were Malcolm's overzealous border patrols. But the resistance, fiercer than expected, the attackers driven by a frenzied, unnatural aggression. It wasn't just loyalty to Malcolm, it was something darker. Minds clouded, wills overridden, Malcolm's insidious magic at its worst. Ronan fought like a demon, his claws tearing, his fangs bared, the scent of battle, blood, sweat, and fear, thick in the cold night air. His only thought, keep Malcolm's attention here, give Anya time.
Meanwhile, Anya, her heart pounding, slipped into Malcolm's study. The room reeked of his ambition, of stale power and deceit. Her sunstone senses vibrated, guiding her past subtle magical traps to a locked strongbox hidden beneath a floorboard. Elara's journal had been right. This was it. Her fingers trembled as she focused her light, her power, on the intricate lock. It clicked open. Inside, ledgers, coded messages, and a horrifying, damning letter detailing a pact. Not with Jasper Cade, not yet, but with a cabal of rogue alphas, promising them Stonehaven territory in exchange for their help in deposing Ronan and securing Malcolm as the new undisputed alpha. And the price? Anya herself. They knew of her bloodline, her power. They wanted her. To make things worse, the letter detailed Malcolm's systematic poisoning of Elara, a slow, undetectable method using rare herbs that mimicked a wasting sickness. Her breath caught. He hadn't just killed Elara. He'd tortured her. But then, before she could grab the evidence, a cold voice slithered from the shadows. Looking for something? Little healer? Malcolm! He hadn't been at the border at all. The feigned skirmish. It had been a trap. For Ronan, and for her. Anya whirled, her sunstone light flaring instinctively. But Malcolm was prepared. He held up a dark obsidian amulet. It pulsed with a sickening energy that absorbed her light, stifling it, making her gasp in pain as her power was choked off. "Did you really think," Malcolm sneered, stepping forward, his eyes glittering with triumph, "that I wouldn't know my own alpha's tactics? That I wouldn't have wards against your kind?" His gaze, hungry, predatory. "You, my dear, are far too valuable to let roam free." Without warning, two hulking warriors, their eyes glazed with Malcolm's influence, stepped from the shadows behind him, blocking her escape. Her world tilted, trapped, powerless. Ronan! Her silent scream echoed in her soul. She had walked right into the viper's nest. And now, the viper was ready to strike, no matter how hard she tried. Escape seemed impossible.
The battle at the northern border raged, but something felt wrong. Malcolm wasn't there. This wasn't his usual style of command. This was a distraction. A horrifying realization slammed into Ronan with the force of a physical blow. Anya! This whole thing, it was a setup. Malcolm had lured him away. "Fall back," Ronan roared to his warriors. "Back to the lodge, now. Anya's in danger." He didn't wait for them. He shifted mid-stride, his massive black wolf form tearing through the undergrowth, a primal snarl ripping from his throat. The scent of Anya's fear, faint but undeniable on the wind, was a spur to his desperate speed. Faster, faster.
Panic clawed at her. Her light, her only true defense, was smothered by Malcolm's dark amulet. His thralls were closing in. "What do you want, Malcolm?" she choked out, stalling for time, for a miracle. Malcolm chuckled, a sound devoid of all warmth. "Want, little healer. I want what is owed to me. Stonehaven, its power, its alpha seat." He paced before her, a predator savoring its trapped prey. Ronan is weak, lost in grief, blind. He never appreciated what he had. Not Elara's strength, not Stonehaven's potential, and certainly not you. His eyes raked over her. "Your bloodline. It's a prize. One my new allies will pay handsomely for. Or perhaps..." His smile widened. "I'll keep you for myself. A Sunstone Luna, a powerful asset." As if summoned by his words, new howls echoed from outside the lodge, not Stonehaven wolves. These were different, wilder, more savage. Anya's heart plummeted. The rogue alphas from the letter. They were here. Malcolm's allies had arrived.
He burst into the main hall just as Malcolm's thralls were about to seize Anya. At the same time, the main doors of the lodge splintered inwards, and a new wave of wolves, larger, rougher, their scent reeking of violence and Jasper Cade, poured into the hall. Cade. So Elara's final warning was about Jasper too. Malcolm had made a deal with the devil himself. For a split second, the hall was a tableau of chaos. Malcolm, sneering. Anya, defiant but pale. Cade's wolves, snarling. Ronan's own loyalists, few but fierce, engaging them. Then Ronan acted. He launched himself at Malcolm's thralls, a black blur of fury, tearing them away from Anya. He shifted back to his human form, his alpha power blazing, his golden eyes incandescent. He drew Anya behind him, his arm a steel band around her waist. With a single glance, he saw the terror in her eyes, but also a spark of her indomitable spirit. "Malcolm!" Ronan's voice boomed through the hall, silencing the snarls, the clashes. Every eye turned to him. "You dare bring this filth into my pack? You dare threaten my Luna? A collective gasp went through his loyalists. His Luna. Anya's breath hitched. Her name hung in the air, a declaration. Malcolm's face twisted into a mask of fury. She is no Luna of Stonehaven. She is a tool, a bargaining chip. She is my mate, Ronan roared, the words a physical force, the power of the true alpha bond finally, irrevocably, unleashed for all to witness. And you pathetic, power-hungry cur, have just signed your own death warrant. As if fate demanded it, between one breath and the next, the lines were drawn. Stonehaven was at war with itself, and with the shadows Malcolm had invited in. There was no turning back now. The fight for their lives, for their love, for their pack, had begun. His wolf pressed forward, and he let it happen. This was it. The final stand. The main hall of Stonehaven. A maelstrom. Snarling fury. Desperate courage. Claws met claws. Fangs flashed in the dim, torchlit chaos. Ronan, in his massive black wolf form, fought like a creature possessed, his every sense strained, trying to track Malcolm, trying to protect Anya, trying to hold his fragmenting pack together. But Malcolm, that venomous snake, was nowhere to be seen amongst the direct fighting. Instead, his dark influence was everywhere. Like a poisonous mist, it seeped into the weaker-willed of Stonehaven's defenders. Men and women Ronan had known his whole life. Suddenly their eyes would glaze over, their movements becoming jerky, unnatural. And then, they would turn. Not on the intruders, Jasper Cade's savage rogues who poured through the shattered doorways like a plague, but on their own, on him, a trusted warrior, young Thomas, whose father had served Ronan's own father, lunged at him, teeth bared, eyes vacant. A puppet. Ronan dodged, his heart tearing. He couldn't bring himself to deliver a killing blow, not to Thomas. So, he disarmed him with a heavy shoulder check, sending the younger wolf sprawling, momentarily stunned. But there were more. So many more. They're using the old tunnels beneath the west wing. Elder Maeve's voice, surprisingly strong, crackled over the pack's emergency mind link, a lifeline in the swirling confusion. Malcolm's leading them. They're bypassing our main defenses. Ronan's blood ran cold. The west wing. It led directly towards the old Luna's tower, where Anya was meant to be relatively safe with Caleb and a few guards. He'd miscalculated, horribly. He'd thought Malcolm would face him directly, alpha to treacherous beta. But then, Malcolm had always preferred to strike from the shadows. He'd always been a coward at heart. Anya. Caleb. He let out a deafening alpha roar, a command for his loyalists to regroup, to form a defensive perimeter around the main stairs leading to the residential wings. But even as he roared, he saw it. Jasper Cade himself, a brutal, scarred wolf larger than any Ronan had ever seen, flanked by two of his most vicious lieutenants, broke through their already thinning line. They weren't heading for him. No, they were heading for the stairs, for Anya, for his son. The scent of their fear, Anya's and Caleb's, was a sudden sharp stab in his mind. He felt it, clear as day. His world tilted. This was it, the moment he had dreaded, the moment he would fail them all. Again. The core question screamed, how could love possibly stand against such overwhelming, calculated darkness? He didn't know what scared him more, Malcolm's treachery or Cade's brutal efficiency.
The distant sounds of battle, snarls, roars, the sickening crack of bone, were a terrifying soundtrack to her own frantic efforts. She stood with Caleb in the relative safety of Elara's old sunroom, a small space high in the Luna's tower. Elder Maeve's two grandsons, barely more than pups themselves but fiercely loyal, stood guard at the door. Her Sunstone power thrummed beneath her skin, a nervous, desperate energy. She could feel the darkness Malcolm wielded, a cold, slithering presence coiling around the lodge, and then something else, a raw, brutal power. Jasper Cade. He was here. Without warning, The door to the sunroom exploded inwards. Splinters of ancient oak flew like shrapnel. Two of Cade's hulking wolves, their eyes burning with feral hunger, filled the doorway. The two young guards lunged forward with desperate howls, buying her precious seconds. "Caleb, behind me!" Anya cried, pushing the terrified boy behind a heavy chaise lounge. Her body moved on instinct. She threw her hands out, her sunstone light flaring, a shield of pure, golden energy. It slammed into the attacking wolves, sending them staggering back with yelps of pain and surprise. Her light, it burned them. But then Malcolm was there, stepping through the ruined doorway, Jasper Cade at his side, a cruel smirk on his face. Malcolm held up that cursed obsidian amulet again. "Such a pretty light little healer," he sneered, but so easily snuffed out. As the amulet pulsed, Anya felt her power drain, sucked away, choked. Her shield flickered, dimmed. The pain was immense, like her very life force being siphoned. She gasped, stumbling back, her chest ached. One of Cade's wolves lunged again. But then, Elder Maeve, where had she come from, threw herself in its path, her own frail body a desperate shield for Anya and Caleb. There was a sickening snarl, a cry of pain. Anya screamed, "Maeve!"
He heard Anya scream over the din of battle, a sound that ripped through his soul. He finally fought his way to the base of the Luna's tower, his black fur matted with blood, his own and that of his enemies. The sight that met him, pure hell. Malcolm and Cade stood over a fallen Maeve, and Anya. Anya was struggling, her light a pale, desperate flicker, as Malcolm's amulet pulsed malevolently. Caleb was crying, huddled behind her. "No!" With a roar that shook the very foundations of Stonehaven, Ronan launched himself up the narrow stairs, a blur of fur and fury. He slammed into Cade, sending the larger Alpha sprawling, then whirled on Malcolm. But Malcolm was too quick. He grabbed Anya, his arm a vice around her throat, the obsidian amulet pressed against her temple. "One more step, Ronan," Malcolm hissed, his eyes glittering with mad triumph. "And your precious little Sunstone Luna goes dark. Permanently." Ronan froze. His wolf snarled, a desperate, raging sound. He was trapped. Utterly. To save his mate, he might have to sacrifice his pack. To save his pack. He couldn't. He just couldn't. The space between them burned with impossible choices. His breath caught. This was the devastation he had feared. It was here, and it was his fault. Time stood still. The sounds of fighting below faded to a dull roar in Ronan's ears. All he saw was Anya, her face pale, her beautiful light, so faint now, held hostage by the man he'd called brother. And Cade. Cade was picking himself up, a low, menacing growl rumbling in his chest, his eyes fixed on Anya with a hungry, possessive gleam. Malcolm's grip tightened on Anya. She let out a small, choked gasp. Ronan's wolf thrashed within him, a desperate, clawing beast. Attack! Kill! Protect mate! But his human mind screamed in terror. If he moved, Malcolm would kill her, just like he'd killed Elara, and he'd failed Elara. He couldn't fail Anya too. "What do you want, Malcolm?" Ronan forced the words past the constriction in his throat. His voice trembled. Malcolm's smile was a wolfish slash. "Want, Ronan? I want what you so carelessly threw away. I want Stonehaven. I want its loyalty. I want its power." He paused. "And Cade here. He has his own price for his assistance." Jasper Cade stepped forward, his massive form radiating brutal strength. "The female," Cade rasped, his voice like stones grinding. "Her bloodline. She comes with me. Cooperate, Blackwood. And your pup. He might live to see another sunrise under Malcolm's stewardship." His lips curled in a sneer. "A small price, wouldn't you say? For peace. A choice. No. An impossibility. Surrender Anya to this monster? Let Malcolm, Elara's murderer, rule Stonehaven, and Caleb, his son, to to live under their shadow. The very thought, a physical agony. His chest ached, his carefully rebuilt world, the fragile hope Anya had brought. It was all crumbling to ash. He had brought this upon them, his blindness, his weakness, his failure to see the snake in his own den. Elara's face swam before his eyes, her smile, then her lifeless form. He'd failed her then. He was failing Anya now. The core emotional question echoed, a mocking laugh in his soul. Love hadn't conquered darkness. It had only led to a more agonizing devastation. He looked at Anya. Her eyes, though filled with fear for him, for Caleb, still held that unwavering light, that impossible strength, that love, for him, a love he didn't deserve, a love he was about to betray, to save Caleb. What wouldn't a father do? What wouldn't an alpha do to save even a remnant of his pack? His legacy? His shoulders slumped. The fight. It drained out of him. The silence roared. "Anya," he began, his voice a broken whisper, the taste of bile in his mouth. He was going to say it. He was going to agree. For Caleb. But then her voice, though weak, cut through his despair, clear as a tiny bell. "No, Ronan, don't. I choose you. Always." Her eyes, they weren't accusing. They were loving, trusting. Her words, that tiny, almost lost spark of unwavering love in his overwhelming darkness, they snagged on something deep inside him. A memory. Elara's last warning. He fears only the true light, the bond of a true mate. His head snapped up, his gaze met Anya's, and in the quiet that followed, in the span of a breath, something inside him, that broken, defeated thing, began to fiercely, impossibly fight its way back towards the light. Her light. Maybe, just maybe, it wasn't over yet. Darkness suffocating. Ronan's soul a hollow, aching void. He'd failed. Again. Elara, Anya, Caleb, all lost because of him, his fault. The words from Jasper Cade, that twisted offer, they echoed, a siren song of surrender. A small price, for peace. But then, Anya's voice, so weak, yet so damn strong. "No, Ronan, don't. I choose you, always." Her words, a tiny pinprick of light in his crushing despair. And just like that, something inside him, that broken thing, it twitched. Because of that, Elara's last warning, the one Anya had shown him, resonated with new meaning. He fears only the true light, the bond of a true mate. Not his strength alone, not his alpha fury, but their bond, her light. He looked at Anya then, truly looked. Her face was pale, smudged with dirt and exhaustion. Her beautiful sunstone light, though dim from Malcolm's cursed amulet, still flickered defiantly in her eyes. And it was aimed at him. Love. Unwavering. Unconditional. How could he betray that? How could he surrender her? No, he wouldn't. As if summoned by this shift, Caleb, who had been huddled beside Anya, suddenly piped up, his small voice surprisingly clear. "Mama Elara, she showed me a secret door, in the roots of the heartwood tree," said, whispering, "only for the pack's darkest day, when the alpha needs the mountain's true strength." Ronan's head snapped up. The heartwood tree, the ancient center of Stonehaven's oldest magic. Elara had shown Caleb a way in, a way to... What? A desperate, wild hope surged through him, battling the despair. A path. A chance. Maybe it was fate. He met Anya's gaze, her eyes widened, a spark of that same impossible hope reflecting his own. Her world had tilted, now his was righting itself, finding a new desperate axis. The core emotional question pulsed. Could their combined love, their faded light, truly banish this consuming darkness? He didn't know. But goddess help him. He was going to try. His wolf surged, no longer with despair, but with a nascent, dangerous resolve. What followed was a plan born of desperation and love. Caleb's secret passage. It led to the Heartwood's chamber, a place of immense natural power, untouched by Malcolm's corruption. Elara must have known. She must have foreseen a moment like this. Anya, her Sunstone power still weak but her spirit blazing, believed she could use the chamber to amplify her light, to channel it, to create a beacon so pure, so potent, it could shatter Malcolm's hold on his thralls, expose his dark core. But the cost, the sheer energy required, it could drain her completely, kill her even. Her instincts surged at the thought. He looked at her fierce, determined face. The thought of losing her, it was a fresh, tearing wound. But the thought of not trying, of surrendering her to Cade, or Stonehaven to Malcolm, unthinkable. So, this was their gambit, their only gambit. He would lead their few remaining loyalists, brave Maeve's grandsons, a handful of others who'd broken free of Malcolm's initial confusion, in a final, desperate diversion. He'd draw Malcolm and Cade's main forces away from the Heartwood, buy her the time she needed. "It's too dangerous, Anya," he began, his voice rough with unshed tears. Her small hand covered his, warm, steady, as if the forest watched. She looked into his eyes. "Ronan," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly but firm. "Our bond. Elara said he fears it. Our light. This is the only way." Her soul answered his fear with courage. "Trust me. Trust us." And he did, with every fiber of his being. This was it. The ultimate trust. The ultimate risk.
His eyes, those molten gold pools, were filled with such terror for her, such love. It made her chest ache. But deep down, she knew the truth. This was her purpose. The reason she was a Sunstone healer. The reason fate, or Elara's spirit, had guided her here, to Ronan, to this moment. The mark on her soul where their bond resided, tingled with anticipation, with power. Before the words left her lips, she pulled him close. Their kiss, fierce, desperate, a promise, a prayer, a melding of souls against the coming darkness. His scent, pine, wild earth, and pure alpha filled her, strengthened her. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, she knew this was more than a battle strategy. It was an act of faith, in him, in her, in their fated love. When they broke apart, the air thickened with unspoken vows. "I love you, Ronan Blackwood," she choked out, the words torn from her very soul. His eyes blazed. "And I, you, Anya Sharma, my Sunstone Luna, my light." A growl rose in her throat, a promise of return. Then he was gone, leading his warriors into the fray, leaving her to face her own destiny at the heart of Stonehaven. The wind carried his name. As if fate demanded it, she turned towards the ancient Heartwood, Caleb's small trusting hand in hers.
Ronan and his handful of warriors, they were a whirlwind of black fur and desperate fury. They crashed into Malcolm's and Cade's forces near the main gates, a suicidal, glorious distraction. He fought with the strength of 10 alphas. His only thought, buy her time. Protect the Heartwood. Each enemy wolf he threw aside, each blow he landed, was a second earned for Anya, for their pack, for their future. Shadows danced between them and their foes. He saw Cade, that brutal, scarred wolf, his eyes fixed on Ronan with murderous intent. Good. Let them focus on him.
Meanwhile, Caleb led her through the hidden passage Elara had shown him. It was dark, damp, the air thick with the scent of ancient earth and primal magic. It opened into a vast cavern at the base of the Heartwood tree. The tree itself pulsed with a soft, silvery light, its roots like gnarled old hands digging deep into Stonehaven's soul. This was the place. She felt it, clear as day. Her Sunstone power resonated with the tree's ancient magic, a low hum starting deep within her. Caleb squeezed her hand. Mama Elara said, "Tree is friend. Tree help Luna." Anya knelt, kissing his forehead. "Thank you, brave little wolf. Now stay back. and be very quiet. Her body moved on instinct. She stood in the center of the cavern, beneath the vast canopy of the heartwood, and closed her eyes. She reached for Ronan through their bond, for his strength, his love. And then she reached for her own power, the Sunstone light. She pulled it up from the depths of her soul, from the very heart of the earth, from the ancient magic of the heartwood itself. Light began to gather around her, soft at first, then brighter, and brighter still. Her hair lifted as if in a wind, her skin glowed, the air in the cavern thrummed with power.
As the silence stretched in a lull of the battle, he felt it, a surge of pure, cleansing energy washing over the battlefield from the direction of the heartwood. Anya, she was doing it. A desperate hope, fierce and wild, clawed its way through his battle rage. His wolf pressed forward, renewed. But then, Malcolm, in his human form, his face a mask of fury. He broke away from the melee. His eyes, they were fixed on the glowing light emanating from the heartwood's direction. The little healer plays with fire she cannot control. Malcolm snarled, his voice cutting through the din. Without another word, he spun and hurtled towards the heartwood. Towards Anya. No! Ronan disengaged from Cade with a savage roar. He had to get to her. He had to protect her. As the sky darkened with the coming storm of their final confrontation, he raced after Malcolm, his heart a frantic drum against his ribs. Ronan, a black wolf of pure alpha fury, slammed into Malcolm just as the traitor reached the Heartwood Cavern's entrance. Teeth flashed, claws tore. This was for Elara, for his pack, for Anya. He had to hold him here. He had to. Inside the light built, a roaring inferno of Sunstone power. She felt Ronan's desperate fight through their bond, felt his love, his fear for her. It fueled her. With a final soul-tearing cry that was both prayer and battle song, she unleashed it. A wave of blinding, pure light, it exploded from the cavern. It washed over the battling wolves. Malcolm's dark thralls screamed, their eyes clearing in confusion before they scattered. The light seared Malcolm, still in human form, caught in its radiance. He shrieked, his dark magic sputtering like a dying ember. Jasper Cade's invading wolves howled in pain and terror, retreating from the unbearable purity. Empowered by that incredible light, Anya's light, Ronan lunged. He struck Malcolm down, a final definitive blow. The shadow over Stonehaven, vanquished. But then, the light faded, abruptly, and a terrible silence fell. Anya. He shifted, stumbling towards the cavern, his heart a block of ice. Jasper Cade, snarling a vow of future vengeance, was already a retreating shadow in the distance. But Ronan only had eyes for the cavern's entrance, for his mate, his light. Had it cost her everything? His world narrowed to that single terrifying question.
Ronan burst into the heartwood chamber, and his world shattered. Anya lay crumpled at the base of the ancient tree. So still, so pale. Her beautiful light, gone, extinguished, like a fallen star. No! The word, a raw, broken sound torn from his soul. No, Anya! He was at her side in an instant, gathering her limp form into his arms. Her skin was cold. Too cold. Caleb was there, a small trembling ball beside her, his tiny hands trying to pat her cheek. Luna, wake up, Caleb whispered, his voice thick with tears. Pack healers rushed in, their faces grim, but Ronan waved them away. This was beyond their skill. This was a wound of the soul, of magic expended. He held her close, pressing his face into her hair, inhaling her faint, fading scent of wildflowers and sunshine. Not again. He wouldn't lose her. He couldn't. Through their bond, that precious, sacred link, he poured his own life force into her, his strength, his love, his very essence. Live, Anya, his soul screamed. Live for me, for Caleb, for us. Come back to me, my light, my love, my mate. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The silence in the cavern was deafening, broken only by his ragged breaths and Caleb's soft sobs. Her chest ached for her. And then, a flicker. Beneath his lips, against her throat, the faintest pulse. Her eyelashes fluttered, her breath, a tiny, hesitant sigh. Slowly, so slowly. A trace of warmth returned to her skin. Her eyes opened, finding his, dazed, weak, but alive. Ronan? Her voice, a mere whisper, relief, so potent, so overwhelming it buckled his knees, crashed through him. He buried his face in her shoulder, his own body shaking with the force of his emotions. She was alive. His Luna was alive. The core question that had haunted him for so long finally had its answer. Love, their love, had faced the deepest darkness, and it had won.
Weeks later, Stonehaven was slowly healing. Scars remained, yes, on the land, in their hearts, but the oppressive shadow of Malcolm's deceit was gone, replaced by a fragile, hopeful dawn. Anya, though still regaining her full strength, walked beside Ronan through the rebuilt main hall, her hand tucked securely in his. The pack members they passed no longer looked at her with suspicion or fear, but with a quiet reverence, with gratitude. She was their Sunstone Luna, the light that had saved them. Caleb, no longer silent, darted ahead, his laughter echoing, a sound that was pure music to Ronan's ears. He was a happy, thriving pup, his spirit fully restored, his bond with Anya unbreakable. Elara was honored, not as a tragic victim, but as a brave Luna who had fought the darkness in her own way, who had foreseen their salvation, and whose love still protected them. Her memory, a gentle strength, not a crushing weight. Ronan himself, he was transformed. The harsh lines of grief around his eyes had softened. He stood taller, his alpha presence no longer a burden, but a calm, confident strength that reassured his pack. He was a leader reborn, a mate cherished, a father present. That night, beneath the full silver gaze of the moon goddess, Stonehaven gathered at the Heartwood. It was time. Ronan and Anya stood before their pack, he in his powerful alpha form, she radiating a soft, gentle sunstone light. Their wolves, their souls, recognized each other without reservation, with heartfelt vows that spoke of their harrowing journey, their enduring love, and their shared hope for the future. They were formally mated. Her name, his name, echoed as one. The bond pulsed between them, a vibrant, unbreakable connection. As Ronan looked at his mate, his Luna, his Anya, her eyes shining with love, he knew. Stonehaven was safe, their family was whole, and their love was just beginning. The shadows had danced between them, but now, only light remained. Epilogue. A year later. Laughter. Sunlight streaming through the windows of the nursery. Anya, her belly round with new life, watched as Ronan playfully wrestled with a giggling Caleb. Their eyes met over their son's head, a silent promise of enduring joy. The wind carried their names, a song of peace. And just like that, everything was right. Their souls answered each other, a love story whispered on the breeze, a testament to the light that always, eventually, banishes the dark.
Thank you so much for watching this video. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed what you saw, we've got a whole library of other videos packed with more great content just like this waiting for you on our channel. So, why not dive into another one right now? And hey, if you want to make sure you don't miss out on our next upload, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. We'd love to have you join our community and see you in the next video. Thanks again.